Hey, what's up, y'all? I think I'm gonna do a little mini deer series on here. I'm gonna call it Deer Stories. Who is not a sucker for a good deer story? I'm just going to do some quick stories of my mounts that I've got mounted to kind of tell you the story behind them, how the hunt unfolded, how it happened, and all that stuff. So I know I'm a sucker for a good deer story. I can sit there and listen to everybody forever about how their hunts unfolded and all that. Feel free to comment your deer story if you have enough room to type, but I'm going to kick this off with the first deer I took off my newly purchased home. I actually hadn't purchased it at the time, but I was signing papers whenever I shot this deer on this place. So let's kick it off with that, and then it'll just roll on from there. All right, this is the deer that I call Claw. He has, looks like crab claws on the front of his main beams here where they almost touch. So that's where I got the name from, Claw. All right, let's dive into this story. What it is, I bought this place and we were in the process of the paperwork and all that. And I was like, man, I want to get something back there, some cameras or something to see if there's any deer back there that I can potentially take this year. And so I talked to the guy. I said, hey man, you care if I set a feeder up back there and get all this and get everything ready and all that? He said, dude, it's your property, have at it. I said, awesome, cool. So what I did was I went and bought a bunch of wood, had different things to build a wood feeder back there, big roof. I made my own deer feed at the time, so I mixed together, had a big hopper full of deer feed that I was going to put in that wood feeder. So I carried it back there. I actually came in the back side of the property and crossed the fence and went in that way, so nobody even knew I was back there. Well, built that wood feeder right there in the woods, set it up, didn't do anything else to it, dumped a whole couple bags of that powder feed that I was making at the time, set the camera out, left, let it sit for a week or two, and then finally decided to go back there midday one day and check the camera out. And I didn't have any cell cameras at the time or anything like that, so I just went back there and checked it the old school way. Went back here and checked it, and this was the first deer that I had pictures of. He just had little horns like this, and they were probably only about that long, but as the very first picture I got was this deer right here, and that he went straight into the feeder and started eating out of it. And I was like, heck yeah. I was like, that's awesome, a buck right off the bat. Well, fast forward, I started getting more and more pictures of him as the year started progressing, and I'm like, this deer's going to be a good deer. And I just kept going back there, probably around noonish. I'd go back there, put feed out if it needed it, and I'd check it every 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. And I just started getting a ton of pictures of him, and he was just blowing up, and I was like, man, this is going to be a good deer. Sent my picture to a buddy, and he's like, yeah, he said, that's going to be a good deer there. Well, fast forward, we still haven't closed on this house. We had a few issues, along the way with trying to get the house appraised and all that. So just a lengthy process. And I'm like, deer season's creeping in. I got to do something here. So, I went and talked to the guy. I said, hey, you got a gate on your property. I said, you care, if I get a key or something like that so I can hunt this place, opening day, because it doesn't look like we're going to be moved in when deer season's in. It's getting up to the mid-September part, and deer starting to lose their velvet, and I'm afraid that this deer is going to lose his velvet and then go nocturnal. So I'm thinking, I got to change something up here that's going to make him possibly move and maybe stay in daylight a little bit better, or a little bit more often. So I moved away from the feeder. I left the feed in the feeder, but I moved another spot about 100 yards away up the same trail. It was real thick on both sides before I put a food plot in there. And what I did was I put a little bit of corn out, but I put a bunch of apples out. this place down the road here has apples you can buy by the bushel, just deer apples, what they call them, just apples that ain't really the best for eating, but good for deer. So I bought a bunch of those and just started putting apples and a little bit of corn out and all that. Well, every time I went up there, I started putting my climbing sticks up. And then the next time I went up there, I'd put my stand up, just kind of gradually doing it. I started getting pictures of him in that spot in daylight, nighttime. He was hanging around close somewhere because he was there morning, evening, whatever. And I think that shift from the feeder to this spot actually helped, because he started going nocturnal on the feeder. He would not come into that feeder in daylight, even though there was no pressure on him at all. Just a smart deer, apparently, but not too smart. But anyway, he started shifting to that corn and the apples and stuff like that, and he started staying in daylight after he lost velvet. So it's about a week or two before season comes in. I'm like, he's still coming in and out of velvet. I said, there's a good chance that he'll come in and I'll get him. Well, I had already told my wife that I would hunt with her opening day. She was trying hunting that year, and I was like, man, so that's going to suck if he shows up and I'm not there. So I told her, I said, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll just go with you. We'll figure all this out, blah, blah, yada, yada. She goes, no. She goes, you've been working on this all year. You go there, and I'll go sit in the blind. I said, are you sure? I didn't argue with her at all. I was like, yeah, okay, see ya. But so I went there. She went to the blind. She actually seen a nice little 8-point, but she didn't shoot it because it was young. Kudos to her for letting it walk, because about 5 or 6 years later, it ended up being a giant that somebody else shot down the road here. I'm pretty sure it's the same deer, about 150 some inch 8-point. But anyway, fast forward, day of September 26th. It was either 14 or 15, 2014, 2015. I can't remember that season. But September 26th, opening day, it's evening, it's perfect wind, everything is perfect for that day. I said, okay, so I'm doing this. So I went to the backside like I've normally been going in, parked the four-wheeler, snuck in, sat there all evening, didn't see nothing. Didn't see not one deer that evening. Up to 20 minutes of daylight left, or 20 minutes of shooting, legal shooting light. I was like, man, it's not going to happen. He ain't going to show. I was like, he smelled me. Something happened. So he watched me walk in. I don't know. He's bedded down close. I don't know. Something happened. I'm just sitting there rolling through this in my head, and I'm just like, man, I don't know what the deal is here. I said, but, you know, he might come in. He might come in later, you know, whatever. A couple more days or something. I'll just keep hunting. I'm sitting there going that through my head and all this, and I just look over to my shoulder, and he's standing right here, like right beside me at like 5 yards or 7 yards to my right. Dude, I lost my breath. I was just like, oh. I was like, don't move. Whatever you do, don't move. So I'm sitting there watching him like this out of the corner of my eye, and I seen him turn and look at the tree that I was in and look straight up at me. I mean, we made eye contact for a second. And I was just sitting there staring at him. And I was like, it's over. He's seen me. I said, there ain't no way he's coming in. He sat there and stared at me. It seemed like an hour, but it was only like a minute. He stopped. He turned his head back straight. And then I always get him coming in from the right to the apples and stuff. And I seen what he did. He just kept walking. He took off walking. He walked around, and he came in the same exact way that he comes in on the pictures that I was getting of him. I was like, okay, so that's what he does. By this time, I've already got my bow and all this. As soon as he turned and then turned around, that's when I grabbed my bow, and I was ready to draw back on him. As soon as he stepped out, I drew back on him, 7-yard shot in the boiler room. I know I made a perfect shot on him. I was shaking. It was crazy. I was trying to be quiet because I didn't want to bump him out. Man, I was so excited. I was calling everybody. I couldn't hardly text. I couldn't hardly call. My buddy was at work, and he was yelling in the lunchroom and everything. Everybody thought he was crazy, but I told my buddy, I said, I don't know I said, I didn't get it on video or anything. I said, but I know I made a good shot on him. He's like, okay, well, just to make sure, just go ahead and back out, and I'll come over and we'll find him. So fast forward that, we get back in the woods, blood everywhere. We followed the trail right to him. He didn't go 40 yards from where we found the arrow at. And I'm telling you right now, to see him laying there, I was just like, holy crap, dude, this is the biggest deer I've ever shot. It's still the biggest deer I've ever shot. I gross scored him myself at like 143 and 3/8 or 7/8, something like that, I can't remember. But biggest deer I've ever shot. I know it's not a 200-inch deer like, you know, you see people shooting, or 170, 180s, whatever. I'm just an average Joe out here doing this on the weekends, pretty much. And I was ecstatic. I mean, I couldn't have been any happier. We got some footage, we got some video, we got some pictures, and man, it was just great. But to set your place up, to take something like this on your own property, especially a property that I had just purchased or was in process of purchasing, I knew the future was going to be good on this place if I did it right. So I really hope you all enjoyed the story. I know I ramble sometimes, but I'm a sucker for a good deer story. I would sit here and listen to anybody's deer story all day long. I mean, I love listening and talking deer hunting and stuff like that, and hearing people's stories and all that. But drop some comments. If you got enough room to type your deer story down here in the comments. We'll keep pumping these out, see how it does. Just a little quick series I wanted to do to tell you how things happen on stuff that I don't have videos for. I do have videos on a couple deer, but they're not on my channel. When I do those deer, I'll put the link in the description. That way you can go watch those on the other channel that it's on. It's actually a hunting group that I used to be part of, that not part of anymore, but I'm still friends with them. They're great group of guys. So yeah, that's all I got. That's the story on Claw. Till next time. Thanks, y'all.